Being the spotlight is the place to network and chat with me. Being the spotlight is the place to chat with me. I'm Sue of ID.
Welcome to Be in the Spotlight, and today my guest is Georgina Green, and if you would like to just give us a little bit of an introduction to yourself, Georgina, that would be appreciated for the viewers watching at home.
Okay, thank you very much. So yeah, excited to be interviewed with you. So yeah, my background is in science pretty much forever. And these days I tutor students for GCSE and A-level through their STEM studies. So it will be anything related to science and maths, but broader into things to do with like computer science and everything else. And then because I have always been this kind of science nerd and organisation nerd, I share some of the processes that I've basically nerded up with other tutors who are looking to set up their own STEM tuition or STEM education businesses as well.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, and just for the people at home who may be watching that aren't from the world of STEM, could you just tell us what STEM actually stands for?
Yeah, so the letters of STEM are science, technology, engineering, and maths. And there's obviously at school there's science and maths on the curriculum, but there's also for a lot of what's happening in schools and for businesses like mine, a push to share more of the options available to that, because I don't think that students necessarily know what STEM and STEM careers look like, and that's fair enough because it changes quite frequently. That's the technology.
Yeah.
It's not really a very well understood industry, so yeah.
No, and it's certainly an area that they're pushing a lot, as from what I've been reading. I mean, I'm not a STEM expert by any means, but I can see that it's been really big, and the people that I follow on social media, a lot of them are talking about STEM backgrounds and stuff like that. So what I want to sort of talk to you a little bit about today is your personal journey, a bit about your self-belief. So can you share with us a bit about your journey from becoming a STEM tutor to becoming the entrepreneur that I know you are? And what are some of the pivotal moments that have helped you to build confidence in your abilities in order to do the job that you do?
Yeah, so I mean, the entrepreneur part, I think, has pretty much always been there. It just wasn't really something that I identified with until more recently. I have, since I was 16 and could first get a job, always had multiple things going on, studying and working, or working and self-employed. And yeah, I think there's this entrepreneur mindset that people have, that for some people it's actually comfortable to be able to explore specific things under an employee model, and basically somebody else is in charge. And for other people, that does not give you the opportunity to do all of the cool things that exist in your brain, and you just want to come out of that controlled 9-to-5 desk-bound structure and go and do your own thing. So I think that's always been a part of my brain. But when I was really little, I wanted to be a teacher until I got to secondary school and saw what that looks like.
Yeah, it's enough to scare anybody off, I think.
Yeah, I mean, heroic to anyone that is actually currently a secondary science teacher. That is very brave. I think that's very brave. It's not for me, and it's not really the personality that I have. And then a friend of mine very helpfully suggested that I might like to try tuition, because she was a qualified teacher and had also been doing tuition like towards the end of her PGCE, and suggested that might be a good thing for me to do. And having done it, I immediately loved it. So despite the fact that I have always had all these several things going on, that one just became a bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger piece of my pie until it's taken over.
So you've talked a little bit about the challenges but what would you say was the biggest challenge that you faced in your career, and how did you overcome shaping your belief in yourself and your business?
So that final step into being entirely self-employed was probably the scariest thing. There was a full decade where my business was running and growing, but I didn't want to leave. I was working in a science role in a very good company, and it's been there for a long time and really built up my reputation and my skill set in there. And it was really scary to leave that behind, because I feel like I'd invested so much in it. And there was a lot of value from it, but having both of those quite big plates spinning was meaning that neither one of them was getting the proper attention. And I think ultimately I got to the point where I realized that the decision wasn't which one of these I want to do, it's can I actually just go and be self-employed and that be okay, because that really was what I wanted to do. Couldn't have thrown that away and just been an employee forever.
No.
Hate it.
And it's obviously grown and what you're doing now, and I know in our 2 or 3 year connection relationship, is it really as long as that? Gosh, well, anyway, you had a pivotal change recently yourself, that you've been doing 2 or 3 different things, but you've sort of rebranded and relaunched yourself again. So what made you finally decide to pull it all together under the one STEM umbrella, as you called it?
Yeah, I think it's what I've realised is it's really helpful sometimes to just have a conversation with somebody else about things, because that's the sort of thing that you don't have as a self-employed person. You don't have a manager. And I use AI and tech a lot to kind of be my digital boss in terms of prioritization and being realistic with my time, but the decisions I still have to make. So I actually spoke to a coach and talked through what I was finding challenging. That I was running basically 2 businesses. This is what I always do. I was supporting students, and then I was doing these different things for tutors in response to answering questions. I would create a product that served to answer that question, and just realize that actually there's no, like, both of these things could be aligned. What I enjoy is this conversations around STEM and learning more about how I support my students, having conversations with other people who have those same interests. So why not bring all of these things under that one banner? So whether I'm talking to students or to tutors, it's still about all of these things that I enjoy. It's actually sensible when you're trying to sell something to make it really specific and clear what it is, who it's for. So it was silly to try and help everybody anyway.
So you sort of streamline it in, and as I am always hearing, you found your specific niche and now you're focusing on your target audience. No, it makes total sense. It makes total sense. I know we've had conversations offline and in DMs about this very topic, and I think you were the very first person who ever called me an entrepreneur. I never even saw myself as that. I just saw all these ideas buzzing around in my head, and trying very much to try and do everything else, answer all the questions and everything else. And I very much I've had issues with the information I've been told and what to do, and I've tried to do it and it's just not worked for me personally. And I think that what I found in the end, that the people that I was listening to weren't the right people for me, and they were very niche in the area of what they were doing, but what they didn't do was understand what I was doing and what I was trying to achieve. And what I've learned about myself is that I am unique and I am doing something different to anybody else, not in the sense that there aren't other people doing what I do, but from the backgrounds in the area that I come from and where my expertise is, nobody else is doing it. So I've actually discovered I am a pioneer in that area. So I think once I realised and I've accepted that, there's no point listening to other people if they don't know what it is you're doing and what you're trying to achieve. So as you said, AI has become my best friend in helping me work through, troubleshoot and get that confident in my head. which brings me nicely onto the next area of the story of embracing technology, which I've never hidden. I've always said that my transformation was through the Be Social Get Digital, and it was learning how to embrace the technology in order to teach it. So you say that you've worked extensively with your tutors online and looking at the digital tools. And I know if there was anybody that I could say that was more geeky and techie than me, it has got to be you. So I know how techie you are. Can you talk us about some of the key technologies or platforms that have specifically or significantly impacted your work, and how can they benefit other educators and business owners?
Yeah, I just love playing with stuff. I think it's probably why I like science. One thing I've learned is that a lot of the time, the tools that I already have, even like my email account, there's stuff that comes along with it, and it constantly being updated that people just don't use. There's stuff sitting there that can do all sorts of cool things. And just actually the products that you already have, going onto their features page and having a look at what they offer has been amazing. I am a big fan of AI, and that is basically appearing everywhere now. Everyone that offers something online has included some sort of AI element in what they're doing. But I found it really helpful. So the big challenge really with getting things done and being more productive and able to kind of keep up with growing a business is managing your mental energy, because it is all based on your own expertise and your own knowledge. And if you don't have the mental energy to do anything more, nothing's going to happen. So if something doesn't actually need my mental energy, don't give it. And I would use AI a lot for decisions and thinking things through, basically do a whole brain dump into ChatGPT and say, this is what I'm trying to achieve. Can you give me a suggestion? And it's not going to solve everything for me. It's not going to do it for me, but it will turn what is a maybe incoherent outburst of ideas into a plan that I can make fit what I want to do.
That's what I'm glad you said that. It's one thing that I've had trying to explain what I'm trying to do to other people in a way that they understand what I'm saying. And I think it's because I'm very neurodiverse that what makes sense in my head or the ideas are all buzzing around in my head, when I try to get them out or on paper, it doesn't always translate into what I'm actually trying to say. But when I'm actually able to, as you call it, brain dump into something like ChatGPT, it seems to be able to understand the mess of ideas that are in there and put them into a more organised structure for me to actually work with. So which is amazing, you know. And in actual fact, you know, it's actually helped me find me even more than you know, just talking with other people, because I think it's got use. I have asked it how it makes sense of what it is I'm on about. It genuinely knows where I'm going and what I'm trying to do. And I don't know about you, but I've also found that people talk a lot about prompts. They say, oh, put this prompt in, put that prompt in. And I find that if I follow those prompts, I get rubbish. I don't get anything that I'm looking for. So I just chat with it. And it is called ChatGPT after all. And the more I chatted with it, the more it's got to know me and how I am and what I like doing. So like now we're so tuned into what I'm doing. You know, sometimes I still have to remind it, you know, what I'm on about, but it is quite good. And I'm sort of looking, because I always find that coming up with ideas, I end up, it's like an exam with me. Say exam, and my mind always goes blank. So I sort of get it to come up with ideas, and then I take those ideas and I develop them, and then sort of between us we end up with quite a sort of a good sort of thing. Oh yeah, that looks quite good. That looks like what I'm after, or something like that. And as well, you can ask those questions that if you're not sure about, you don't mind being silly asking it, because it's going to answer those, but you don't quite get the same results if you're asking Siri or looking at Google search or something like that. So that's definitely something I could say. I've not been on AI for long. It's only probably been about 18 months, but again, it was challenged because I was afraid to use it. So again, it's all part of this embracing the technology. So talking about challenges, many people find it challenging to integrate new technologies into their work. So what advice do you have for those who are hesitant or unsure about adopting new tech tools?
That was a bit of a learning curve for me. So because I have always been this same nerd, I have, whenever there's been new tools or anything that's introduced to a workplace or a learning environment that I was in, I would immediately go and play with it and learn all of the things that existed in the back end, and all of set everything up that I was doing through this, and trial and error, basically learn how it worked. But then it meant that I would be like I would invite people to events through this new tech, or do something through there, or send messages through there, and people were like, what are you doing? I didn't even know that was there. How does this work? Realizing that I have to kind of accept that that's not the way that others are going to work. So I have kind of been made more aware of this, that it does take, I think maybe I'm a bit too, let's see what happens, and if it goes wrong, it doesn't matter. I think for most people it is a little bit, actually I'm not gonna start using it until I know that it works. But you don't know that it works until you start using it. So it's been really helpful to set up like playground environments. So if there's like, for example, one I use quite a lot now is I use Monday automation for managing clients and managing tutors who want to come and join the company. And it makes sure that they're going to follow all of the required steps, so we can still have personal conversations with them, but all of the stuff, the essential customer service steps, or the essential safeguarding checks, are going to go through there. And in doing that, I basically just set up fake tutors and fake customers and experienced the journey as them. So I knew exactly what was going to happen for them before it got shared. Or I would trial it with some friendly customers. So one of my customers is my niece. She is always guinea pig for any new tech, but customers, the odd customer that I know is happy to try new things, I put them in first, and just play with it and see what happens, because you don't really know how it's going to work until you try it. So yeah, I'm aware that for myself it's just a case of try it, and if it goes wrong, I'll just say, oops, that wasn't supposed to happen, and carry on. Not everybody is quite so willing to do that. So
no, it's quite a brave thing to do. A similar story in some respects, but not quite as advanced as you. But I probably would say in the areas where I am confident and where I know, then yeah, I've pushed things to the limits and know what it could do and stuff like that. Probably done too good a job in the training of other people, because I ended up getting made redundant on a couple of occasions because of it. So, but in the areas that you don't know, and the areas that are very new to me, which definitely is the area of like the automated processes that everybody seems to be doing, I sort of think, oh my gosh, everybody's doing it. It can't be difficult, but I still sort of, find things like that difficult to do. And I mean, luckily for me, for the job that I do in the, I won't call it the 9 to 5, because I don't do a 9 to 5, but in the main area of where my work is, we don't have the need for that because it's being done for me. But like you, I think for me, I love learning. I'm a definite lifelong learner, and I always have been, and I love new things. But I also, I won't say it's needing the hand holding, but it is, as you say, if you don't know what things can do, you don't look for those things unless you have a need to use it, or unless I'm sort of challenged. And I find that I learn things by being challenged, like going onto AI. I was challenged to go on it, I went on it, and then the more I've started using it, the more I've learned it. But like examples like email, well, Outlook, I have a love-hate relationship, mostly because my one keeps wiping itself off of my computer at the moment, so I'm not feeling that positive towards it.
No.
But in the same time, I use multiple email accounts across different platforms, so I've got a lot of management there. But I'm also aware of the people around me through being on social media who are experts in their fields. So for me now, where you run your business, where you manage tutors as your part of your business, I don't, because I'm not as big as you and I'm not doing it full time, I sort of, if you like, have pulled into my network of, so like when I was a curriculum manager, I had a team working for me and they were all experts in their fields doing this, that and the other, and I had a good knowledge of everything, but I knew who in the team were experts of doing whatever it is. So in my working in my business now, I've, if you like, networked with other people who know more about certain areas than I do, so they are my experts. So I always sort of say that I can get you started with the basics, because I'm, if you like, the jack of all trades in that area. I do get expert in others as well, but if people are in my group or wanting specific knowledge or asking questions, and I know I'm not that expert, then I know who in the group is the expert to signpost them to. Or if I had enough demand, would be able to organise putting on the training and stuff like that. So it's sort of certainly been useful for knowing who are the people to go to, and who are the people I didn't need to, who I could network with to work with. So that's the other thing I found about being on here and using social media especially, is that networking and that communication, and it's having these conversations with you. And it's not about having the sales pitches, which you either get people connecting that don't connect with you and then they don't speak to you, or they hit you with a sales pitch and you haven't even started talking to me yet. It is actually good to build a relationship with people first, and that's where your network comes in. And it's not it's not what you know, it's the people you know, and it's about the business that you can bring to each other or refer to. And I know you and I have had experience of doing that, where people have asked, and it might not be something that you do, but you said, oh, try speaking to Sue, or vice versa. So I think that is where, knowing where our strengths lie and knowing where people that might be struggling, at the end of the day, when I look at out there, the people that are creating content are so expert in what they do, I think I'm not going to go into competition with them, because I'm not going to embarrass myself. But I do know where my market is and where they struggle with, and that's what I focus on. It's just not many of them are on social media, but here we go. Which leads me to the next area which I wanted to talk to you about excelling in our goals. So what strategies do you recommend for setting and achieving goals in both your personal development and your business? And can you provide an example of a goal that you've set and how you've achieved it?
Yeah, I love all of this. This is kind of related to what I do with my students as well. So at some point I realized, can you just practice what you preach? Because I didn't relate it to me, given that I am not doing GCSEs or A-levels, but the process doesn't change. So pretty much the first conversation I have with students is to say, what goals do you have for your exams? Which is quite frequently met with, I'd like to do my best. And then encouraging them to say, but what does that look like? And why does that matter? Because you can't, not everything that you do is going to come out perfect. So if you're going to pick a few of these things, which ones are the most important? Why those ones? What difference is that going to make for you personally? Because it's kind of like you were saying earlier, that it's going to be, there's no point doing things really well because you want to be better than everyone else, or to do what other people are doing, if it doesn't matter to you, or if it doesn't suit what you enjoy or who you are. It's completely pointless to start, but it's also going to be way more uncomfortable and way more difficult to do. And even if you achieve it, are you actually going to be glad that you did, because it doesn't matter to you?
No.
But what do you actually want to do with this? Why is this important? And then reviewing that quite regularly. So I did this at the beginning of this year, realised that I have a business completely founded on STEM education. And I am not talking about STEM education.
Mm.
So I
Mm.
started a podcast talking about STEM stories, and I started the STEM Educators Academy, and I completely changed the Facebook group so that it's all about that. If I'm talking about what everybody else is talking about, not only does it not matter to me, but it doesn't work, no one cares.
No.
If you make it specific to you and what you want to do, then you can start breaking it down into specific steps. You're way more likely to do it. And then when you do, it's way more impactful.
That's such good advice and so true. And I think you're so spot on there again, going through this thing about, you know, what was the purposes of me being on social media? Well, everybody said, you know, it's promoting your business, you're doing this, you're doing that. But it wasn't actually the reason I was on here. The reason I was on was actually to develop, you know, find out about platforms, how they worked, to understand it, so I could teach it. All part of the essential digital skills qualifications and the framework, which is what I teach. So, you know, and I got told you can't be all on all of them. You can only be on one and do that well, and then go on to another one. And I listened to begin with, and then I would go on one at a time. But I thought, well, that isn't going to help me teach the subject. I've got to be on all of them to see how they're working, to understand them, and that's what I did, which has actually proved so invaluable for what I'm teaching in the classroom. And throw in the bit about building confidence. If you're somebody like me that's not the most naturally confident person, all of this has been the making or the transformation of where I was to what I am now and the journey that I've been on. So, you know, I before I wouldn't have been able to talk at all confidently about it because it wouldn't like an expert in it. But because I've been through that journey, you don't realise how much you've picked up and how much you've absorbed of everybody else telling you their stuff. That it means that you're knowledgeable. So like when I'm talking now, I can tailor anything from using it for personal use to job searching, to scaling your business, believe it or not, to, you know, actually going and ultimately what was mine, developing the digital skills and seeing what content there is out there on all the platforms. So it's certainly a goal of, but people don't think of it in that way of using it. They just see it as a tool and don't look at all the benefits of it. So yeah, you're quite right with regards to the goals and setting them. So we've talked a little bit about our own journeys there, but can you share a success story of one of your clients or students that you've given advice to or given some coaching to that's made an impact? So and if so, what is it and what can we learn from that story?
Yeah, so a lot of the success stories have been based around building people's confidence, be that students or tutors. I think people know, I think we inherently are probably our worst critics, regardless of what age we are. So having somebody that has zero to gain or to lose from what you managed to do tell you you're actually really good at this, and you may be less good at this, but it doesn't matter because it's not going to stop you from achieving whatever it is that you want to achieve. So stop doing that. It does really make a massive difference to students and to tutors. For students who are, because I focus on maths and science, we always have these quite comedy stories where I start this conversation saying, what are your goals? What interests do you have after your exams? What are you going to do with these grades? Quite a lot of the time they'll just apologise and say, I'm sorry, I don't really like maths, or I don't really like science. That's why you're here. If you were the world's biggest science fan, you might not need so much help. Well, I find out wrong about it. Bless them.
Oh dear. Oh, I would have been probably one of the people at school that would have needed to see you at the time, because math and science definitely wasn't my area at all.
That is a pretty common response. Unfortunately, people just don't necessarily enjoy it. But that's why I love to be able to do what I do, especially when I can start like a couple of years before their exams and have time to build their confidence and share a little bit more than is on the curriculum. World of STEM, that the world is actually endlessly fascinating, and you'll learn this little bit of it on your curriculum, but actually these are all of the other things that could open up for you. There's been several occasions where students that hated maths to the point that they might quite likely have meltdowns in a lesson or in an exam, have gone on to do a STEM degree, and it's just, I can't describe the satisfaction of having completely turned around their attitude. And that's exactly why I want to do it, because those children as adults are going to be changing the future of the world with whatever that they work on. Now they believe in themselves, and the same is true with tutors who are just starting off in their business, and exactly like you say, you have a million different ideas, but what do you actually do with them? Turning that into a step-by-step plan, and then watching what happens. I see them on social media, I see their website growing. It
must be a real excuse the pun, buzz feeling from it. It's I get that as well. I mean, sadly for me, as I said, a lot of my evidence, as it were, isn't out there on the social media. It's in the classroom and off of social media, and I think that's why I probably do my sort of little like roundups of what I've been doing. It just sort of reminds me of what I've been doing and stuff like that, and stuff out there. But yes, seeing the people come from having no knowledge and no confidence, and seeing them literally turn around and fly and shine is such a rewarding feeling. And I totally get where you're coming from, because I've only been teaching the EDSQ for they've just done my 3rd year. And I've had 100% pass rate for every single year in my first times of doing them, and it is it's this sort of it is such a sort of you feel so pleased or proud of it, but it also puts you under pressure, because you've got that track record now that you don't want to fail. And even this year, when I got asked to be the guinea pig for the new exam board that we transferred through, because I wasn't supposed to be doing it this year. So they were thrown in with no material resources or anything, so sort of just going through and then going to the exams being completely different to what they were in the other examples. I'm thinking, oh my goodness. But at least the people that are working with this year, they've had so much benefit of my knowledge, and it's been far beyond what the syllabus was supposed to have been. But practice what you preach. And I think that was something else you picked on earlier as well, when you said we have all this stuff, but you say to others about doing stuff, but if you don't do it yourself, you really got to put your money where your mouth is and practice what you preach, and that. And I think that is true. So which leads nicely into the next little section about growing in competence through our education and training. So how important is continuous education and training for growing one's confidence and skills, and what are some of the resources or practices that you recommend for ongoing professional development?
It's essential. I think so I've been in business since 2012, and most of the growth of my business has happened in the last 4 years, and that is in part because that's the time that I've been entirely self-employed, but it's also because of the reason I had the confidence to take that leap is because I connected with other people by signing up to education and training. And everybody that's in the education and training that is of benefit to you obviously going to have quite a similar goal to you, otherwise they be there. So that's actually been really helpful, and everyone's at different parts in their journey and on slightly different meandering routes, so there'll be different things that you can help them with and they can help you with. So it's again, it's a similar experience to our students, that when you work with them individually, you can really give them specific growth in a very short period of time. When you put them in a group of other students, they realize how much they've learned and how they can help other students. It builds their confidence. So one where I specifically learned a lot and built my confidence a lot was in the qualified tutor community and joining their group conversations, because I not only did it, I'd been doing it for a long time, but I had no teaching qualifications, so everything I knew about education was based on learning by doing. To go into a community and essentially polish what I'd learned through doing, but also reassure me that I was doing things right was massive boost to my confidence.
Yeah.
That I got to be supportive to other people then. Otherwise, I don't think I would have been confident enough to do that.
No. And I think you're so right when you say about being part of a community. It's so important, and I think probably that was one of the things I've felt I've struggled with the not fitting in, because I don't belong to the tutoring network, because I'm not a tutor in the sense of what everybody else is that teaches in school, and I'm not a corporate trainer, so I don't fit in that camp either. I am in adult education ultimately, and private bespoke stuff that normally has come as about that people wanted to do things, but they can't find what they want. So they've asked me if I could help them to do it instead, you know, and that is literally what I do. It's like, hence why IT for you is very much about IT for you, is what you want to learn. And some of the times it's even been doing things that I've not done myself before, but I thought, oh, well, okay, it's another chance to learn and get paid for learning. It was a little bit of a leaf out of the VA book, a handbook as well, you know, get paid to do something and and show them how to do it type of thing. So it has been great, but it's also been difficult because, as I was saying earlier, because you haven't got the people in the same setup doing what you're doing, to try and understand what it is you're trying to do it's very difficult, and it has proved challenging. So I mean, this is one of the things that I found with my own group, with the Buzz. It was, you know, I was looking for something that, you know, I struggled with and what I could find, and I couldn't find anything out there that was offering what I was trying to do at the time. And, you know, to be able to ask those questions on how do you do it, you know, I've seen various tech groups that focus on certain things, but not sort of from a teaching, training sort of perspective, things like that. So yeah, it is. And then what I did find that is when we had these socials and stuff, that you then get into chat with others from the different backgrounds that you can then you know, find out about, you know, like the approaches that you're using in your business. Oh, I could try doing that. So you're bouncing ideas off each other. So it's sort of like a networking meeting, but without pitching and selling and you know, all that type of thing, which seems to be what a lot of networking events are. And I you know, to me, I just want to be able to have chats with people that, you know, are doing stuff or trying to do things that I'm doing, that we can bounce ideas off. And that's where my thoughts were going on it. So that's where I found the education training coming from. So we've talked about it a little bit briefly, as you mentioned it earlier, about your STEM Educators Academy. How does it help educators and business owners build their skills, and what makes it unique compared to other training programs out there?
Yeah, so it was based on, like you say, what I was looking for myself. So there's training around tuition in general or education, but I couldn't find anything that was helping me with my science, besides actually the science qualifications. I wanted to be able to learn more about the world of STEM and what things were happening in there, and then specifically how that could relate to what I was doing in supporting my students. And the more I connected with other organisations, there's lots of like voluntary organisations that I was basically doing that with, like STEM Learning, where you go and deliver workshops in schools. A lot of it is targeting primary students very sensibly, because if you're trying to change people's attitudes about STEM, you need to do it early. But it wasn't necessarily anything that translated into helping me with my own business. So given that I was preparing resources for myself and then training people on my tutor team in how to deliver that, and then coaching individual, kind of mentoring tutors with growing their business, without any of the kind of pedagogy, because generally they were qualified teachers, they needed to learn the rest of it. It just made sense to put all of that together and build this community of people, like we were saying, all with that same interest, all with the same passion for the things that I most enjoy, and start more of those conversations to bring all of that goodness out of it. That's what I was looking for myself. So I figured there's got to be others, and that's exactly what's happened. We join their calls and we have conversations about this cool thing that's happening in the world of science. Did you read about these people discovering these things? And how does that relate to curriculum science? And how does that be like making this more interesting?
So brilliant.
Anyway.
It just gives you such a buzz, no pun intended again.
Yeah.
It is, and it is. I mean, I haven't had many. I haven't done much recently in my group for various reasons, but the last ones that we did, which actually I hosted, was as a request that came through from one of the other members of the group, was again ultimately over the use of social media, and that how much of a chore that they felt it was, and taking over. And we had a really good brainstorming or chat over how we could use it or how you manage it, and also a bit of how addictive it can be if you're not careful and stuff like that. And it was actually one of the very few ones that I did where one of the group experts, who was a group expert in the group, joined us in the conversation as well. And it was quite educational, quite informative. And I think we all sort of got things out of it from each other, which is what, it was all about, really. So yeah, I think it is, there are a lot of academies out there, but it's how they are able to help you and how they're aligned to what it is we're doing. So I take my hat off to you for focusing on doing what you're doing. So I just want to sort of look again to sort of to finish off the last sort of area of our interview questions, and it is about actually integrating the digital skills. As you know, I'm all about the digital skills these days, not niching down, because the niche is the digital skills, which I've accepted, and that's what I've been saying all along. I don't just teach one thing, I teach digital skills. So for those looking to enhance their digital skills, what are the most important areas do you think they should focus on, and how can your academy support this skill development?
So the one thing that I have noticed over the years stops people from exploring digital tools more is this lack of confidence in their own ability to use them. And then that means that even when they do dip their toe in and try things, they have backup. So if they use a digital calendar, they've got a paper calendar and everything's in there. And it's never going to work, because if you've got the paper calendar and you've always used the paper calendar, it doesn't matter if you've also put that into your digital calendar, you're never going to use it. You're going to keep using the paper calendar. I think people just have to kind of embrace, like, one small bit at a time, but embrace it, like fully dive into it and see how it actually works. Because whilst I appreciate that everybody does work differently and different things work for different people, actually using these digital tools rather than things on paper saves you so much time, and they integrate with each other in really intelligent and intuitive ways. So for example, even just if you have a Google email account, you will also have a Google Calendar, which will mean that when you get a ticket to something that you've purchased, it will put that ticket detail in your calendar and send you reminders. And when you get a message about a bill, it will remind you to pay that bill. And if you put something into your Google Keep notes, it'll extract information that it thinks could be an event or a reminder. They just are designed to try and save us time.
And
So
I think that is so as you said, that's so out there. And I think half of what you just said, people just don't even realize that those features are available to them, and I think, like me, where I have the problem is because I'm on 3 different platforms, I'm on Google, Microsoft and Apple. It gets a little bit too confusing, because they do, I think I set up Calendly at one stage to try and see if it could do, which is fine, but when you get email messages coming in on Outlook, then Google it does get a little bit. So I always say that I'm the person on how not to do things with the tech rather than how to do things, and some of those out there. But at the same time, if I wasn't on all of those 3 platforms, I wouldn't know the amount of stuff that I do across the 3 platforms to be able to teach it. So it's that's the price I have to pay for doing it. So I am trying to streamline it all a bit more now. It's been one of my goals to be a bit more streamlined in everything, which goes into the last question about how do you see platforms like the Buzz Digital Skills Help playing a role in supporting digital skill development, and what advice would you have for those wanting to leverage such platforms effectively?
It does support with that confidence thing, like you're saying. If you're doing something outside of your comfort zone, it's so much easier to do it with other people. There's someone there that's been down the journey that can tell you what the next step is, and it takes away a lot of the fear. So one area where I had a massive steep learning curve and I didn't feel confident taking the leap on my own was in building my website. I built a WordPress website, and it's not necessarily always intuitive, and I had no experience that was in any way related to that beforehand. So that I did within a community. So I learned exactly how to do it, and on every step, undoubtedly things don't go to plan. There was always somebody that I could reach out to and say, "Oh, this has gone wrong, I'm scared," and they'd fix it. And they've done it, they've seen it before, they know what to look for. For me, it's terrifying, but they know what to do. So to have someone like that when you're dipping your toe into these new areas makes it significantly less scary. As an end result, I now manage my website entirely by myself, and I'm comfortable doing so. But because I had that like several years of learning and it opens up other things. So yeah, absolutely, to have a safe place to learn and play with these things is essential, really.
Yeah, totally. I'm glad you said that about the website, because I did my free one was in WordPress, and the domain one is also supposed to be WordPress. I had the first hassle was trying to, and it's all been self-taught, because every time I tried to get onto a WordPress course, it got cancelled, or it was very, 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 very basic days. And it was also before I started doing the business side of things. And when I finally got the free website transferred over to the domain, which was a hassle in itself, it then flagged up how rubbish my website was, which I'm like, so I immediately sort of then pulled it down. And I think, like you were saying, over the sort of the 2 or the 3 years that I've been working, what I've been doing and what I was focusing on has sort of changed and evolved again, because I went down the rabbit warren of doing what other people were doing, or got sidetracked and just completely, didn't know where I was with anything in the end, to sort of now trying to get it all back in, into some sort of organized structure that is clear in my head and clear with the message, and trying to everything else, so that now I feel like I'm going to have a go at getting the website done again. I haven't got the support. I wish I knew I had more support, but getting it out there. But again, ChatGPT has been helpful for getting you to focus it. So I'm going to stick my little toe, or big toe, in the water again over the next week while I'm off over the summer break, and see if I can actually get it uploaded and doing something more than currently what it is. But you're right, it is about that support and about that training and finding help and guidance through things. And I think that's the other thing, is that you can find some great offers out there, but you'll find some of the great offers come either with a huge price tag that people just can't afford, so they won't use it. Or if you find something, then you get pitched to the one-to-one offers that are also scaled at extortionate prices. So finding something like you're offering, and what I do, or what I've tried to do, I mean, my hive at the moment it's parked for various reasons. It hasn't gone completely, but it will come back when it's ready, and it's in a format that will be manageable for me. But there's only so much you can do in 1 day a week when you're out working full time. So I have to be realistic with what I can do and what I can manage, and what I think is beneficial to me, but also people that are watching or following me, that would be helpful to them. And I think this is what I found with the Be in the Spotlight interviews, is it's an opportunity for me to ask questions and chat to people who other people may not have heard of or follow or know about. And if other people are like me, struggling, or have been like you want to see what it is you've been on and the journey that you've got, then to my mind, we're helping people get to know what a fabulous offer and what you do in your area of work, and obviously learning about what I do too. So Georgina, thank you so much for being my guest today. It's been lovely talking to you. I could carry on talking to you for hours, but I'm quite sure that the viewing public will get bored of listening to me waffling on. So thank you very much for your time. And if there's anything else you'd like to share before we go, then please do tell us what's coming up in the world of STEM and Georgina and green tutoring.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's really lovely talking to you, and I think exactly as you say, it's really helpful to have people that are willing to share stories about what's happened before the point where they've actually launched and shared and been visible with a successful product, because I don't think that is where most of their audience are. It's really helpful to see what happened first. Thank you very much. What's happening so the STEM Educators Academy the next month, so at the moment we're working on things to do with planning and goal setting, and next month is all around the legal issues. I've got Lawhound coming to share their how you make sure you're complying with the law and things that are going to make you less anxious about growing your business.
Well, viewers, that's something worth signing up for, or if I've not heard anything else, that's one for sure. That's a lot of the things actually that you said about that with the legal aspect, that people don't realise how much is involved with running a business. You know, it's not just a case of setting up and bingo, it's all the other stuff that you don't actually think about that takes the time. So that's great that you're offering that with your academy. And what about the actual learners? What have you got planned for the students at the start of a new academic year? Do you start something new with them, or is it building on? How does it?
Yeah, so at the moment we've got so last year I shared a GCSE printed planner, so they would go through week by week and it would give them small steps to take each week to build their confidence. And I've just published a evergreen version of that, so it's not dated. They can use it every year if they want it. And then we're launching some very, very small learning groups, because as we said, when you learn with others, it actually boosts your confidence much more quickly, but it can be scary. So doing groups of just 3 students at a time, all of the STEM subjects to support each other.
Oh, that's really good, because again, that's another thing I've heard push so much. You've got to be doing this, you've got to have a group for that, you've got okay, I think it does, but it does depend on what it is and what you're offering and stuff like that. But I think you're right, less is more. And I hear people talking about all these large numbers that they work with, and thought terrifies me. But then for me personally, the need to do group work, I get it in the classroom, so I don't need the group work in the same way in the private life. Yes, it would be if I was organising training. It makes it more fun to have more than one person doing it, but again, it's sort of trying to find the right people at the right time and the time zone, because that's the other thing I find is people are all over the place in my group. That trying to find a time zone that fits everybody is challenging, really. So but that's great. Definitely.
I have that with my students. They pretty much all want between 4 and 6 p.m. They make it very easy.
Oh yeah, that does make a difference. It definitely makes a difference. Georgina, thank you so much for being my guest today. You've been a pleasure to talk to, and I hope we get to hear more of you in the future with how things are progressing and changing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Be in the spotlight is the place to be network driven, discuss technology. Be in the spotlight is the place to be. Tech talk tips for free.